Hi, Peter. Thank you for
Howdy.
being with us today.
It's great to be with y'all.
So, currently, right now, you are with the Minnesota Timberwolves in their basketball operations department. Prior to that, you were with Texas A&M, and in 2015, you were with the men's basketball team when you went to Italy and Greece. Thinking back to that time, I know it's so long ago. I feel like at this point, but thinking back to then, what was your thinking process in trying to build a financial framework, if you don't mind sharing with us, please?
Sure. I mean, everybody thinks money grows on trees, and the reality is that that's not the case. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you walk into wanting to do a great trip for your program, for your kids, to give them a great experience, it does cost a little bit of money. But you can walk into that with some confidence knowing that the money's there. And so one of the first things that we did was talk to our administration. We talked to our athletic director, our sport administrator, got everybody on the same page as what our goals were with the trip, and then also communicated very clearly with our development office, with our foundation, and began to establish relationships with people, some that we had and some that we didn't have, but others knew about, who may be interested in joining us on the trip and partnering with us to make it happen.
So you brought up a really key point with the top-down administration. How important is that to have that buy-in automatically from them from the start of that process?
Sure, it's absolutely crucial. And one thing that has made us successful when we were at A&M was having everybody aligned with that. You don't want to get in a situation where you're asking for money and your administrators hear from the donor before they've heard from you. And so having everybody on the same page is important from that aspect, but also from the standpoint that they will bring to the table more people that you and your world may not even know about yet.
So when it came to figuring out your travel party, I mean, you have family members, the team, obviously, support staff, and you also had donors. For you, how was it? How were you able to go ahead and figure out your travel party and the cost and making it a successful trip for the team?
Sure. We had, put together a group and heard from our coaches and everybody interested in who was going to be a part of the trip, and understanding that circumstances change. And when you're doing this, sometimes personnel changes, and just buffering for that. But we worked through that list, and then we worked through what it was going to take to get there and how many people we would feel comfortable as bringing along as donors who would help us bridge the gap in the cost. And so we talked through that, had a fair conversation, and then also worked through with Anthony Travel with DC, was a great partner for the several trips I've been on, and talking through different ways to how do we plan that number with not knowing exactly what it's going to be when we get to the moment, creating buffers, making wise decisions, not overcommitting ourselves, but then it's also establishing how we could accomplish the overall objective in the fluidity of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So thinking in the beginning of the planning process again, at Anthony Travel, we believe the biggest mistake a director of ops could make is not asking enough questions. Do you feel that asking questions was important in that process?
Hugely important. And I know that's kind of my nature in some ways, and I understand some people are afraid to ask. But one of the first things I always do in a new situation is go back and look historically what's been done. And that'll help guide some framework of what could be possible and where other people have started with from before. And then I'll dig in and ask other people who have done the same thing. I'll ask experienced folks. I mean, that's really where DC came into play for us so much, as we invited people from outside of our program into it. We came across some scenarios that we weren't necessarily thinking of. And when you talk about bringing donors in to your program and traveling, we have people come with us during the season. We have donors travel with us and whatnot. But a team trip is very different than when you're getting on a commercial flight, when you don't usually do that. And their expectation and how they travel is one thing. The people who have the pockets, the deep pockets, that are able to come and join you on those and help support those, have an expectation. And they have a lifestyle that they are used to. And so we had to work through some of those things and learn through that process. But the more we talked about it up front, the more we asked people who had done it, the more people we involved, keeping it efficient, the more we were prepared for.
It's always nice to have those people with deep pockets. So thinking onto the trip, you know, the donors obviously were there. Was there any kind of donor feedback after the trip of their experience on it?
It's usually always been positive. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a situation where it wasn't positive, and there's always things outside of your control. And we lost some bags one time because a flight was canceled, and one of our donors was very much involved in that. But they had fun in the process of resolving that as well. The key for us and what makes all of that possible is the relational side of it. They're normal people, and they want us to be normal people too. And when you become friends with that, who cares what happens?
I like it. I like it. So we're going to start wrapping up, but I do have a question for you. What's something that you think is very important for director of operations or sport administrators, whoever are planning a foreign tour in the future? What's the most important thing that they need to understand in that process?
I think don't be afraid of whether or not the money's out there. It's out there, but plan early for it, work early for it to build relationships with fans who may become donors. It's not something that you need to be eyeing people as dollar signs. Eye them as supporters of your program, and you'll find out they'll come to you and say, how can we participate? And you'll end up getting to your goals without really trying.
So just only because you just mentioned it, planning early. So your tour was in 2015. What point did you start planning for that tour?
Oh, man. I mean, we probably start a good 10 to 12 months. 12 months, we start really forming the idea. 10 months, we start really getting into the details of it. And I'd like to say 6 months out, we have a pretty good picture of it. But that's because we're planners. There's also a lot of things that we did late in the process, and that was okay too. I mean, that's the value of having experienced people in your corner and working with them, is we can make things come together pretty fast if we needed to.
Well, and DC has said that you are a great person to work with. So, well, thank you so much again for your time today. We'll go ahead and move on to our second panelist.